I should accompany the lady off the stage. Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be back here again. You are a magnificent audience. It is an honor and a thrill to be back here again. They'd asked me to speak a little bit about my life a little bit, so in that I'm 3/4 of a century old, I better not speak about all of those 75 years. But nonetheless, I will still speak to you the same way I spoke to some of the students when I was here before. First of all, I'd like to let the choirs know that they sang just as magnificently today as they did last March. They're absolutely wonderful, and I'm thrilled that many of them are going to come down for this big concert on December 15th. As some of you may know, I'm so sure some of you know, I was born in Centerville, Iowa, back in 1938, and was born into a very poor family, economically speaking. My grandfather was a slave. He sold for $500. My father couldn't read or write. He was born in 1891, and my mother finished 11th grade, and she was born in 1910. But in those days, when you finished even junior high or 11 years, as we all know, that was an accomplishment. But what was so important about my family is that we were very spiritual. My mother and my father, they taught my 3 sisters and me to always put the Lord first in our lives. And even though, economically speaking, we were very, very poor, we were multi-millionaires in our faith in God and in justice and education. My father stressed to me constantly, he said, son, whatever you do in life, get an education. That is something that no one can take away from you. And so I grew up in a family of tremendous love and unity. My father didn't do much talking. My mother was kind of the talker in the family. But my father, I learned from him by the power of example. He was always very kind and quiet and polite to my mother and to my 3 sisters and me. And he always was just this really like a perfect earthly father and a perfect husband. And my mother really was a great, great, great mother. My mother was, as I said, the talker in the family. And she and I, when I was 11 years of age, we read the Bible through from cover to cover. You read 3 chapters a day and 5 on Sunday, and you complete the Bible in a whole year. So you should try it. It's a wonderful book, so I recommend it. And 3 chapters, it doesn't take very long. But my mother really wanted me to always, any questions I had in life, she said, just ask the Lord for the answer and you'll find it always in the Bible. So as I said, we were very, very poor. And in Centerville, which was not different from many other cities in that time around the Iowa and the whole United States, as a matter of fact, but there was obviously discrimination there. We were not allowed to sit downstairs in the first floor with white people. We were called colored back in those days. And we were not allowed to swim in the swimming pool. But in spite of that, my parents said, we have to love everyone. And I found out when I was writing my autobiography, the lady who helped me, she was 1 year ahead of me in high school, Mary Swanson, and she was a lifeguard at the swimming pool. And eventually they would let the colored kids swim, but we could only swim Saturday mornings from 9 o'clock until 11 o'clock. And this is what I'm going to tell you now is what I didn't know that she told me, because she was, of course, white and she was a lifeguard. She said after all of the colored kids got out of the pool, they put more disinfectant in the pool. So they had to clean us up a little bit. But I didn't know that till she told me. But you know, in spite of that, for example, if I would come home with my mother and I told my mother that a boy called me the N-word or hit me or something, my mother would say, well, now, son, you get down on your knees and you pray for that boy. And of course, the first thing I thought was, just a minute, mother, you didn't understand what I said, you know. She said, no, I did. She said, you pray for him. She said, you must never, ever have any hate in your heart and never be bitter. And she said, regardless of how anybody treats you, you have to love them anyhow. You don't have to love what they do, but you still have to love them as a human being. So I was very grateful that I was brought up with those principles and those values of love and not hate and not bitterness and never seeking revenge and striving to get an education. So my two best mentors, of course, in my life, growing up, were my mother and my father. And then the people that I respected also in Centerville very, very much were ministers, school teachers, and nurses, and doctors, but the doctors kind of got their pay. But if we look at it, I hope there are no doctors here. But usually they're okay, but the nurses are the ones that keep us alive, you know. At any rate, but I really admired these people, and E.W. Fannin, he was the superintendent of all the schools in Centerville. And when I was a junior in high school, he invited me to come over to his house. He said, "Simon, I'd like to speak with you." And of course, the first thing I thought of, what in the world have I done now if the superintendent is asking me to come over? But he motivated me. He said, "Simon," when I went over there, he said, "I want to tell you something." He said, "If you continue to keep your nose to the grindstone and study hard," he said, "you're going to be somebody someday." I had no idea what he was talking about, but I said, "Well, thank you, Mr. Fannin." And so he was very motivating to me, as was one of my other teachers, Bill Jerome, who was a coach, as well as he taught history and health. These people I always looked up to because I realized they're the ones that are nourishing all of us children in the world. I often mention this because we're all God's children, but what is important is we have to realize we have to have three forms of nourishment. I look at it as though it's like a tripod with three legs, you know. And so you have to have nourishment through nutrition for our bodies and our bodies to develop. And so we need to eat healthy. And so we need also to nourish our brains, our minds, and that's by going to school and getting an education. And then the third way is by getting spiritual nourishment. And for me, I'm a Christian, so I get my spiritual nourishment from reading my Bible and studying it every day, as well as praying. And so I think I always tell young people, when you get these three forms of nourishment, then you become a total person. And we need this in the world today. Anyhow, so I graduated out of high school. I went 1 year to junior college in Centerville, and I wanted to be a singer because a high school choral director told me, Don Gunderson, that I could earn a living someday being a singer, but I'm sure he was thinking, as I was thinking, about someone like Frank Sinatra and Nat King Cole. I wasn't thinking about opera, and that wasn't introduced to me until I went to the University of Iowa. And when I was in high school, when I was in junior high, the high school choral director invited me to come over and sing with the high school choir. That had never been done before, and I still don't think realized this gift that God had given me. But the principal of the junior high school said, well, I could go over and sing with the high school students. But when I went over there, I sang first soprano with the girls. And it was kind of nice to be in that section. But I really did. I could sing a high C above high C. And so I was singing 3 years. In my senior year, I played football, basketball, track, and all the sports. Choir rehearsals always started, a football rehearsal started earlier than the regular school. So when classes began, I went to the choir to sing. And I went to sing, and I had about 4 notes in my voice. And Mr. Gunderson, the choral director, sent me to just a regular throat doctor in Centerville. We didn't have any specialists for opera singers there. And he just looked into my throat and he said, oh, Simon, I don't think there's anything wrong. I have a feeling your voice is changing at about 18 years of age. And so that's actually what happened. So my soprano days were over. And I thought when I only had 4 notes in my voice, I might as well forget about wanting to be Nat King Cole or Frank Sinatra or Perry Como. So I thought, why not be a doctor? So I transferred from the university, from Centerville Junior College to University of Iowa. And a voice teacher there heard me singing in the old Gold Singers. And he said, he started giving me voice lessons. He said, you have a voice to sing opera. And I more or less said, what's opera? Because in Centerville, we didn't have any opera houses. And he loaned me some recordings of some great opera singers, an Italian bass named Cesare Cieppi and Brian Falsgraf and Janet Alcorn know who he is. These are 2 people sitting on each side of my nurse wife. And They know Cesare and I looked at some recordings of another famous singer, Maria Callas, and a very famous American soprano, two of them actually, Eileen Farrell and Leontine Price. And I listened to this music, and I took these big 33 and the thirds back to my voice teacher, Mr. Callas, and I said, I really like that stuff. And he said, well, you need to go to an all-musical school. So he arranged an audition for me at the famous Juilliard School of Music in New York. And I flew out to New York, and I was so naive, I didn't have enough sense to be nervous at auditioning for Juilliard, because I thought, well, I'm just going to sing for whoever those people are in New York. It's kind of like singing in the Second Baptist Church in Centerville. So I go there, and I auditioned, and Mr. Kellis, I said, my teacher arranged that. That's why I always tell people, young people, your teachers are very, very important, because they're the ones that prepare us for a lot in our lives. Our parents have us for 5 years. The teachers have us for 13 years. And you never know how a teacher's going to motivate somebody. And Mr. Kellis heard this talent that God had given me. He gets me out to Juilliard. I auditioned. I finished the audition. And the jury there at Juilliard told me just to wait outside of the room, outside the door there. And I still wasn't nervous because I didn't have enough sense to be nervous. I just went outside and was walking around Juilliard and smelling the smell of the halls of Juilliard School of Music. And then they called me back in after about 10 minutes. And they said, we'd like to give you a full scholarship to go to Juilliard, a full scholarship. And I looked at them with my naivety again. I said, oh, thanks. Not realizing the magnitude of Juilliard. And then they said, also, we'll get you a Rockefeller grant from the Rockefeller Martha Baird Foundation. And once again, I said, oh, well, thanks a lot. I'm just kind of looking around, you know. And so anyway, I went to Juilliard. And from then, I went to Europe. And in 1965, I started singing opera at the Deutsche Oper, which means the German Opera House in West Berlin. And I made my debut in an opera called Aida. In 1966, the State Department, to this day, I don't know how they got my telephone number, but they called me and asked me to go represent the United States in the first vocal Tchaikovsky competition in Moscow. So I was deeply honored, and it's a long story, but anyhow, I went there, and I got the bronze medal. I got third prize, but that was good enough that President Johnson, who was president in 1966, invited me to come to the White House. They invited my mother to come. Incidentally, I'll tell you, my mother had a voice, in my opinion, far superior to mine. I really do believe this. She had the most incredible voice. I had an older sister also who had these incredible voices. But anyhow, they invited my mother and father, the president did, to come to the White House. My father had already passed away, but my mother was able to come. But she said, oh, son, she said, I can't go up there in that White House. I don't know how to use all that silverware and everything. And so I said, well, just kind of watch the person at the head of the table, and you kind of start on the outside and work your way in. Oh, she said, I'm so nervous, I won't be able to do it. I said, you'll be just fine, Mother. And so anyhow, she came out, and she was picked up at the airport. Can you imagine a little colored lady from Centerville, Iowa, for the first time being picked up in a limousine in Washington, D.C., driven to the Mayflower Hotel, and invited to eat dinner at the White House. I was so happy for my mother because she never dreamed something like this had ever happened in her life. And a very fascinating story while we were there. And I told Mother, I said, just be yourself, which I probably shouldn't have said. But anyhow, she was sitting at the same table with Victor Borg. How many of you remember Victor Borg? Okay. So he was at the table, and all these people, very wealthy people, were talking about their oil wells that they had, all the oil. And so my mother said, well, she said, I have oil on my land also. They said, oh, really? They got all serious. She said, oh, yes. She said, my car just leaks oil out there. Mother. But she said that she did. But she did have oil on her land because the car did leak oil. And I'm sure that Victor Borg used that story that my mother said many times after that. But at any rate, I was so grateful to have such a wonderful set of parents. And I tell all young people, you're very blessed You have parents who love you, and I was so proud that my mother could be there, something that she will always see. She never did forget that the rest of her life. But anyhow, I got the bronze medal, and I came back, and then I started singing at the Hollywood Bowl and with all the major orchestras in the United States and around the world. I've sung in all the opera houses around the world, and I could go on and on and on. But I want to get to a point now, about 3.5 years ago, when I was invited to sing in the grand finale concert of the World Cup for soccer, in South Africa, in Johannesburg. And before I went up to sing with my choir from my high school that I founded in about 17 years ago in Cape Town, the moderator mentioned this statistic that I had never heard before, that 1 million children die every year in Africa from a mosquito bite. They get malaria. And every 30 seconds a child dies, and 90% of all of the malaria deaths in the world are in Africa. And that was very heavy on my heart. So at any rate, I decided to try to do something about it when I came back to the United States. And so about a year or so ago, we embarked out on this mission. I believe God called me to do this and try to do something to save children's lives. And all they need, as I'm sure all of you know, is a $5 treated net from Valent and Biosciences Corporation here, and I think it's called Osage. And that's all they need, is this net to sleep under. And so I really decided I wanted to try to do something. And so I have a committee that we founded, and the executive director, Paul Furley, of my foundation, we collected a number of business people and businessmen and women in Des Moines, Iowa, to go on the campaign. And so we're hoping that we'll be able to raise enough money at some point in the near future to maybe buy even 1 million nets and help save these children's lives. I'm sure you probably have heard that Governor Branstad and Lieutenant Governor Kim Reynolds, they've endorsed this project. We've been very blessed. We have a lot of sponsors such as Pioneer DuPont, Mid-America, Principal Insurance, Sukup. I could go to many, many people, Toyota dealer Dan Deary, who are helping to sponsor this concert and to pay for all the expenses of the Hilton Coliseum, so that all of the money that we receive from ticket sales will go to buy the nets. And we're hoping that Iowa will be able to lead a nationwide endeavor to help save these children's lives in Africa. During the summer months, I got another telephone call that I didn't know how they got my number, but the United Nations Foundation called me and said, we hear you're doing something out in Iowa that's never been done before, getting children or high school students, I shouldn't say children, sorry about that, high school students. And they said that you've got this, your whole state, you're going to try to get involved in this. And I said, well, yes, to make a long story short again, my wife and I flew out to Washington, D.C., and we met with the director and the assistant director of the United Nations Foundation. And we had this wonderful conversation, and they feel us in more. And they said, we'd like to form a partnership with you. If you can make enough money to buy the nets, we will help educate the people, make sure the nets are properly treated, and distribute the nets. And so we have signed an agreement. Paul Ferrone, my executive director of the foundation, signed an agreement. So the United Nations is involved. And they're going to send, the director said he would come out here and speak on December 15th about what we're doing here in Iowa. We're hoping to maybe to have a president from one of the African countries to come over and speak. The lieutenant governor, they said they've cleared their calendars. They're going to be there. And I know that some of the students of the choirs in your high school area here are going to participate. And so we hope that Iowa will lead a campaign that we will help to eradicate malaria in Africa so that these children do not needlessly have to die. If we stop and think about it, I found some statistics. We have over 487,000 students from kindergarten through high school in the state of Iowa. If you think we multiply that by 2, that's over 900,000 students. And to think that that many children under the age of 5 and 6 in Africa die every year, and all they really, really need is a $5 treated net from Osage, Iowa, to save their lives, hint, hint, hint. But anyway, we would like to, as many as you people that can come down there to Des Moines on December 15th, there's going to be a great concert. We have a choir already of over 1,000 high school students from different high schools all around Iowa, including Riceville and Osage and St. Angus, thank you. Well, that just reminded me. When I was here before, I won't mention their names because they might be embarrassed, but I'd spoken to the next day I do an assembly, and I explained to the young high school students about this need in Africa. And after the assembly, a boy walked up to me, and he might be here. I know his name, but I won't mention it unless he will stand up if he's here and say it's okay. But he gave me a $20 bill, and I was really touched by that. And he said, I want to help save children's lives in Africa. And then another girl walked up and gave $20, and two other girls gave $10. Two girls gave $1 apiece. And another girl handed me a bill, and I looked at it, and I said, do you know what you're doing? And she was really crying, tears. It's really true. She said, yes. I said, this is a $100 bill. She said, I want to help save children's lives. Well, I found out something about that young lady, why she did that. And I was very, very moved by her story. And the young man who also gave the first $20 from your area right here, I found out later that he has cancer. So these two people the young people were able to identify with the needs of helping to save lives of other children. And I want all of you to know, I will never forget, I have all 6 of those children's names who did that. And that made me realize we can get students in Iowa involved because they have beautiful hearts to help save children's lives over 14,000 miles away. So I want to thank again those 6 students and all of the choir members who are going to come down and sing on December 15th. As I said, it's going to be this huge choir. They say it's going to be the biggest choir that Iowa's ever had in the history of the state of Iowa. We're going to, Joseph Junta, the conductor of the Des Moines Symphony Orchestra, is going to conduct the youth orchestra of Des Moines. Jim Rohde, who is the main choral director at Iowa State University, is going to conduct the choir. And it's going to be an all-Christmas program. And we're hoping to raise maybe $150,000 to $200,000 to buy these nets. And you probably know about the CD that I made that I'm selling called Save the Children, Save Their Lives, where I give $5 from the cost of that CD to buy a net and another $5 to all of the students who sell the CD in a high school, say like the 3 high schools here. For every CD that you sell, we give you $5 for the school. So say if you had 500 students, you sold 500 CDs, I will send you a check for $2,500 that you can use for music maybe, or whatever needs that you have. But I'd just like to thank all of you for having come out to this Christmas concert. I think there's going to be, I'm supposed to invite some people to come up on the stage. I guess they know who they are. I don't know what's going on, but they said I should do that when I finish speaking. So it's already 5 to 5, and the little baby is very quiet now. And it's a sweet little baby. And you know, more than 2,000 years ago, there was another sweet little baby that was born. It was Jesus. And Jesus loves all the little children in the world, red and yellow, black and white. They are precious in his sight. Jesus loves all of the little children of the world. And we want to help save these little children in Africa who are slightly older than the little baby there, but they always die under 5 or 6 years of age. The reason is that their immune systems haven't developed enough that they can fight this off. So I want to thank all of you for having come out this afternoon for this Christmas concert. It's the first one I've sung so far this year. And I wish you all the best, all of the donors who made this possible. I'd like to thank all of you today. And most of all, I'd like to thank all the audience because you people have made this a very, very beautiful beginning for the Christmas season. So thank you all very much. And God bless you all. And I love all of you. And Brian, what's next?
Can you hear me? I just first want to say, wow, I'm on stage with Simon Estes. My name is Karen Richards, and I'm the plant manager of the Valent Biosciences facility that's being built here in Mitchell County. It's a pleasure to
Really?
meet you.
Delighted to meet you.
Thank you.
I think, never heard, go ahead. That's great. I'm kind of flabbergasted, but go ahead.
Your story is just a beautiful journey of perseverance and strength and just belief and generosity and all of the, I'm going to say, obstacles that you faced along the way, and you continue to rise above that. And now you're at this point where you're giving all that generosity back to children. It's just positively amazing. And as I sat in the wings, I just, almost got brought to tears a few times. So I think what you're doing is absolutely phenomenal, and I think all the folks here would say that as well. It's just truly amazing. On behalf of England Biosciences Corporation, we are making a donation of $500 to the Simon Estes Foundation. So I'd like to give you this.
Well, thank you very, very much, and God bless you and your corporation. This is very kind. Do you realize this $500 check, you just take 5 into that, and see how many children you have just saved, and that is very beautiful. And I thank you really from the depths of my heart and for all of those little children in Africa's lives that you're going to save in your corporation. Thank you, and God bless
Thank
you.
you.
I think somebody else is supposed to come up here. Oh, here it is.
We are just going to surround you first. May I say you have a beautiful voice, and I can do model it over all day. But
Thank you.
we are the Youth Advisory Council, and over the past year, we have held 2 major fundraising events. We had a youth dance where all 3 schools had a dance together, and we had the Okie Dokie Brothers here for a concert. And as well as many donations from the public, we would like to present you and your foundation with $5,000.
You are the most wonderful ladies, the young ladies and gentlemen I think I've ever seen in my life, and I really thank you again on behalf of the children's lives in Africa that you're going to save with this. May God bless each one of you individually and everyone else who's involved in collecting this. Oh, I'm going to embarrass you. Did you say 5,000? Oh, she said somebody told her to say 5,000, but it's 4,000. You know what? Even if it's $400, we're grateful. So, thank you so very much for $4,000 or $5,000. We're all human. We can make a mistake, so don't worry. I just cannot thank you, young ladies, enough. And are you just all with this one group or organization, or different? All this one group? Okay, well, I know that my executive director, Paul Ferrone's out there someplace. Paul, we'll make sure that we send thank you to you, ladies and gentlemen, formally for what you have done. And I must say, Mitchell County must be one of the greatest counties in the whole world that has such generous young people. She said there's more.
We have to take care of our accounting issues because this group has already sent $1,000 down to your Estes Foundation. So the total is $5,000.
You know, thank you. He's a lawyer, right? Right? Yeah, I remember I met him. What? Oh, he's the judge. I'm sorry, Your Honor, I made that Well, anyhow, you said there's more to come.
Over here. It is now my pleasure to present you with a gift. This gift is a token of our appreciation and also an early Christmas present. It is a portrait done by a South African artist, David Mabelli. And in the picture you can see, there's two kids looking at a songbook and also their parents watching over them. And we thought this would be very fitting for you. For last March when we talked to you, found out a lot about the stuff that you like and your passions. And I feel like this picture really portrays it all. You got the kids, and that really represents your passion for wanting kids to get a good education and also just your love for kids and what you're doing for your foundation. The music book represents your love and passion for music, wanting to share it with the world and have everybody see it and hear it. Also, the parents watching over the kids represents how important family is to you and how important family is to everybody. And it's just a great thing to have in life, to have a family. And the fact that it's done by an African artist really says it all by your amazing things that you've done for Africa by starting a school, I believe you've been involved in, and also this malaria campaign we're supporting today. And once again, on behalf of all of us standing up here, the Fine Arts Council, the choirs, the choir directors, and the audience here today, we just want to thank you so much for coming back, and thank you for issuing us the challenge to raise that $5,000 for your organization.
Thank you. You know, this isn't about me. This is about why Christ came on this earth. Because he came and he wanted all of us to love one another. And he really loved all children. And what you have started out, all of you, from the beginning of this season, it may not be the exact date on the 25th, but it's the day that we recognize all around the world when he was born. And he was really born to come here just to get us to love one another and to help one another. And what you young people have represented here is just a beautiful expression of love. And love is God and God is love. And you will have saved so many children's lives that I just hope that more people in Iowa will get on board with what you young people have initiated, and that we will really make a big difference in the lives of saving those children's lives. And I will really honor this wonderful painting. I shall put it up in my wife. I will put it up in our home. And it's very touching. And as you said, as parents are so important and guardians of all of us. And so that's a beautiful painting. And then with the children, I always say no child ever asks to be born. We as adults, we have a responsibility, whether they're our biological children or other children. We have a responsibility to make sure these children are nourished and educated and cared for. And what you young people have done is a great example of this. And then the fact that we have music. You know, music is called the international language of the world. And I feel really humbled and honored that God gave me this talent to sing that's taken me all around the world. I met young people like you in every continent except the Antarctic, I always say, and the Finlands haven't invited me there yet. But you are just wonderful, and I really mean this with all of my heart. May God bless all of you and keep you healthy and keep working in your lives to make something great. And I know of yourselves, I know all of you will do that. So thank you. I think you said you had something to say now. Okay, I don't know what's going on up here. But...
All right, now this part involves the audience too. Before our last song, we will be handing around a free will donation. All of the money will be put right into the malaria fund. And we know this is hard times, but just think, if all a person can give is $1, and then 5 people give just that $1, then they'll be able to buy a net that can change many lives. And what's more in the Christmas spirit, in the spirit of Christmas, than helping out a stranger?
Well, thank you again. I think we're going to all have to invite everybody in Iowa to come to Mitchell County. You folks are very blessed to have young students, I must say, like these young students up here. The reason I have to say students because we were having a meeting in Des Moines one time with my committee and some of the people who are on the committee, and we had some high school students there. And so I said to them, well, I'm really happy that we have you children here, because you children can help the children in Africa. And did they ever correct me very quickly? They said, "We are not children, we're students." I said, "Okay." So I want to thank all of you beautiful, beautiful students for what you have done and this announcement that you have just made. All I can say really is God bless all of you and keep you healthy and joyful and so kind as all of you are here. Is there anything else? I think it is a what? Oh, the offering. Okay. You know, can I put something in there too? Okay.